You wake up in the dark and hear the screaming of the lamb.
There is nothing better than coming out of a movie and being absolutely terrified by a villain. Some of the greatest are able to penetrate our inner psyche, having a hold on us far after we've left the theater.
I'll get you, my pretty.
But why are we so drawn to these antagonists? What is it about them that keeps us coming back for more? And what does it say about ourselves? Today I want to look at the villain and hero as a clash of ideologies, a clash that transcends simple good and evil and makes us think and question how our world should be run.
The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire.
Merriam-Webster's defines ideology as a system of ideas or ideals, but I prefer what American historian Morris Berman said: an idea is something you have, an ideology is something that has you. Ideologies drive characters to action. Opposing ideologies lead to conflict, and conflict leads to drama, the bread and butter of great storytelling. So it makes sense that a clash of ideologies will provide much needed fuel for stories, whether it be in film, a novel, or even video games. I want to look briefly at two examples. First, Die Hard, and then Star Wars. But I don't want to look at them from the perspective of John McClane versus Hans Gruber or Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader. I want to look at it from their respective ideologies and how they resonate with us in the society of the time. Die Hard came out in July of 1988 to huge critical success. IFC called it the best action movie ever made, reason 10 being that the title kicks ass and makes no sense. It spawned a new genre of film: Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard on a plane,
Get off my plane.
Die Hard on a... You get my point. But part of the reason Die Hard is so compelling is because of its villain. AFI listed Hans Gruber as one of film's top 50 villains of all time. But when you break it down, Hans is just a guy in a suit with a gun.
The code, please.
He doesn't have menacing red skin,
Evidently not.
terrifying dreadlocks,
Stupid human.
or even catchy one-liners.
All right, everyone. Chill.
So what makes Hans work? I argue that a compelling villain is only as strong as the difference in ideological values in opposition to one another. As John Truby puts it in his book, The Anatomy of Story, great drama is not the product of two individuals butting heads. It is the product of the values and ideas of the individuals going into battle. So let's take a look at one of these battles. Die Hard. Die Hard isn't just a film about a cop versus a terrorist. In fact, I wouldn't call Hans a terrorist at all. He's a thief, plain and simple.
Mr. Takagi, I'm really not interested in your computer. But I need the code key because I am interested in the $640 million in negotiable bearer bonds that you have locked in your vault. And the computer controls the vault.
You want money? What kind of terrorists are you?
Who said we were terrorists?
You see, Hans isn't fighting for a cause. His entire plan actually has no moral basis. He's not a freedom fighter, he's not fighting for something. Hans is in it for one reason and one reason only: pure and utter greed. It's interesting to note here that Die Hard was actually adapted from a book written in 1979 called Nothing Lasts Forever, a time when the United States was going through a crippling recession brought on by, you guessed it, greed.
Is good.
Now let's contrast Hans with Bruce Willis's John McClane. He is the exact opposite of Hans. He doesn't wear custom designer suits like him.
Nice suit. John Phillips, London. I have two myself.
In fact, for most of the film, he's in a wife-beater with no shoes. Jeb Stewart, the screenwriter, is quick to establish this opposition early on when John is picked up by a limo at the airport.
It's my first time driving a limo.
It's okay. It's my first time riding in one.
The limo being a visual representation of wealth and excess. John refuses to sit in the back, preferring to sit up front. To nail this point further, in a stroke of fantastic dramatic irony I might add, Hans is killed when John literally removes the gold Rolex watch from his hand, plunging Hans to his ultimate demise. John is your American everyman. He is the good, virtuous, hard-working, blue-collar American juxtaposed with the greedy, vile, take the easy way out, cough, thievery, cough, East German.
For all your posturing, all your little speeches, you're nothing but a common thief.
I am an exceptional thief, Mrs. McLean, and since I'm moving up to kidnapping, you should be more polite.
One can't help but draw comparisons between the ideals of communism and capitalism at work here. Keep in mind both the book and film were made during the Cold War.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Which leads me to my next example. Star Wars has arguably the most iconic villain in all of cinema history. We are drawn to Darth Vader not because of his cool costume, menacing voice, or affinity for giant catastrophic death rays. We are drawn to him because he represents the absolute anti-ethical values of Western civilization. When we are watching Luke and Vader battle it out, we aren't just watching a battle between good and evil, we're watching a battle between freedom, justice, morality, and authoritarianism, injustice, and immorality. Take a look at some of the greatest villains of all time. Amon Goth in Schindler's List, Annie Wilkes in Misery, Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, or the Joker in The Dark Knight. Now compare them to their heroic counterparts. See how their respective ideologies clash, so much so that each scene has no possible outcome but to be filled with conflict, the foundation of great storytelling. So the next time you're writing, think beyond stereotypical good and evil tropes. Think about what your characters stand for, then maybe, just maybe, you'll have a character who stands the test of time. Hey, for those of you who don't know, I'm just getting my channel started, but if you liked what you saw, subscribe, share, smash the like button, and check out my other video. I'm hoping to come out with new content every month, so stay tuned and think story.